Good evening. All right, we'll give it a couple minutes here before we get started. But if you are live, please say hi. Let us know where you're watching us from. And please help us share. We actually have a really good conversation that we're going to have tonight with two gentlemen from No Eggs Podcast. And so if you're live, please help us share. Also, say hi. Let us know where you're watching us from. Kelly and I are going to just share this. And so we'll get started in a little bit here. Good evening. Hi to those of you who just joined. We'll get started here shortly. Kelly's sharing. I just got done sharing on my page. So if you are live with us, please say hi so we know where you're watching us from. And please help us share. Hey, Eric. I hope you guys are all doing well. It is a Sunday. You know, I'm so used to like us doing a show on a Tuesday. It feels weird doing it on a Sunday. We've been kind of switching things around a little bit. We feel like Tuesday, everybody is trying to kind of get kids ready for bed or get ready for their week. And so we are going back to Sunday. So you'll see us do more shows on Sunday evening. So we hope that you guys can tune in. I know the weekend's kind of winding down, and we hope to kind of talk about topics that matter to you because we know it matters to us. And so we hope that you guys can join us more often when, on a Sunday versus like a Tuesday night. Hi, Chua. Thanks for tuning in.
Wausau, Wisconsin. Are you sure Wausau or are you in Minnesota?
I feel like it's almost the same. All right, Callie, you want to get started?
Yes. Oh, hi, Chai from Florida. Thanks for watching.
I know.
All right. So we have, yes, she sure did, huh? All right. So we have, the episode tonight is called Cancel Culture in the Hmong Community. And we have two great individuals who started a podcast not too long ago. And so we are going to have them on tonight. And so we're going to talk a little bit about podcasting, putting yourself out there, and then hopefully not getting canceled. But we're going to talk about that a little bit because when you put yourself out there, there's definitely a chance of that, right? Because people get to see your messaging, they get to see your posts, they get to see all the stuff that you put out. And sometimes I feel like it is just, well, I guess I feel like in the Hmong community, it's not as harsh, but I guess we don't see that much like crazy stuff that happens, right? But I definitely do like, think of individuals where I feel like anytime they come back and try to do something or say something, there's just a lot of, there's always somebody there that kind of pushes them back out, and so again, I think it's things that we've thought about as well, right? I don't think that we've ever said anything that offended, but we try to stay, it is a conscientious effort to try to make sure that we don't, get in trouble. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we try to stay as neutral as possible. And I think that makes it sometimes even harder for us, right? As people who do podcasting or, do Facebook Lives. But we'll dive into all of that, right? I don't want us to get into the juicy conversations while our two guests are sitting backstage. So we will talk about just our experience and our thoughts on things like that, and I'm sure for those of you who are watching who have thought about maybe doing certain things, but you're a little unsure because of what other people may think of. I think we'll touch on some of that stuff as well. So
Yep. So with us tonight is Pang Her and Tu Lo. And so both are venturing into entrepreneurship. And they are both, they're both from No Eggs podcast. So we will dive into I'm really interested in what that name came from. But with that, we will bring them on.
Hi, Ping. Hi, Tu.
Hello.
Oh,
How you guys doing on this Sunday evening?
Doing great. Just came inside from working outside all day, so a little beat. Got stung by mosquitoes and tore up pretty bad.
Oh no. How about you two?
good. Just had a busy day. We had a event at our shop today that we hosted, and then I went to another show to go network some more, and then finally got to chill out for a couple hours.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So before we kind of jump into today's discussion, I know Kelly gave a super duper high level overview. And so if you guys can each just kind of introduce yourself, provide a little background about you, that would be great.
After you, sir.
You sure?
Yep.
All right. Like they said, thank you for the introduction. My name is Pang Her. Left my career 2 years ago to start a farm, Gorilla Pastures. We have poultry, milking goats, laying hens, and then we also have an apiary that's like a beehives and bee colony where we extract honey, and then we also make lip balm and hand balm and bee bombs out of the beeswax that we pull from our hives. And so, shameless plug, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and our website, gorillapastures.com. That's gorilla with 2 R's and 2 L's, like guerrilla warfare and not the monkey. So.
All right, I'm two. Up here in Minnesota as well with Pang. Let's see. I started with the military. Grew up in Europe. Grew up in France for the first 11 years, and then moved to St. Paul. Marine Corps right after high school for 6 years. I was a firefighter there, and then I followed that path, which led me to fire department for St. Paul for 9 years. I started a business during that time when I was firefighting, maybe for 6 years, and I pretty much did 2 full-time jobs for 6 years. And then I decided to go all in on my business last year. So the last 365 days has just been a whirlwind of learning new things. So kind of just new on the entrepreneur journey in a way, because it's full-time now as opposed to before. And yeah, just doing that, running business full-time, and then trying to get this podcast going that me and Pang have going.
Yeah, so clearly y'all have some things that are similar. And so just curious, how did you guys decide to do No Eggs podcast? And then what's behind the naming of that?
Yeah, we've been talking about doing a podcast for some time now. Where we've met maybe 10 years ago. We've been online buddies ever since. But we didn't know each other too well. And so we figured this was an opportunity. But we've always looked up to each other and admired what the other person was doing. And so we figured we use this podcast to, one, get to know each other a little bit more and kind of speak on just kind of things that we care about. No Eggs actually, it's actually No Tay podcast in Hmong. And then No Eggs is just like, it's just like I guess the English version of it. So it's just for English speaking audience. We didn't want to exclude them. But it's an overall men's health podcast, just about specifically about Hmong men's health or Asian American men's health. And then, we're going to be covering, all aspects of, I guess, men's health.
Yeah, me and Pang actually started talking about it like a year and a half ago before we actually got started. And then eventually bought all the equipment, had a room set for it. And it's kind of how you start, right? You get everything and then you're like, oh crap, I should probably start. So yeah, so now we've shot it for, I think it's only been like 2-3 months, Pang, and we've got, I think, like maybe 7 episodes.
Yep.
And yeah, it's a learning journey as well, to learn how to communicate and conversate, and not break up the flow, and make it somewhat entertaining as best as we
Yeah.
can.
We have like 10 episodes that will never see the light of day just because they were horribly shot. Those were like the first 10 episodes, when we were just learning each other's communication styles. But you guys are at 88 episodes. Like, you know, me and we talked about one of the reasons why we wanted to talk to you guys. We wanted to just pick your brains a little bit about how you guys kept it going, and then how you guys like were how were you guys able to like draw such a big audience? Like, we're just a little curious as new podcasters.
That's how we just communicate, by nodding.
Yeah.
No, but I think, I think one of the, very similar to your story, I think, when we got started, we too also got a location with like a big, Kelly, what are those rooms called? Like the control room, right? Like with lots of like different things that we would have to learn how to do, and try to do the whole recording before COVID. And it was awful. And that we didn't even get to record the entire episode. And that was just a really good like experience for us to try to do it in studio, really nice like location with lots of expensive equipment, and a script. And it just wasn't like authentic in a way. And so then COVID hit, and we were debating on whether we pause or we just kind of find other ways to go around doing the podcast. And we figured, we're just going to go on live for 30 minutes and see how we feel, and see kind of like what people were thinking, whether they thought the topics. I don't even remember what we decided to talk about, honestly, in our first episode, but I think it was probably like real estate and COVID. I think it was. And surprisingly, like the next day we woke up and we had like over 10,000 views.
Wow.
And so it was like, okay, I think this is something that people are interested in. We're new faces. And so I think one of the things Callie and I had to really learn is just be flexible and pivot when needed. For those who followed our journey since the very beginning, we actually started off with 3 people. And then one of our friends, I think just it consumed a lot of time, right? Because at the very beginning, you have to really be dedicated or it'll fall apart. And, she had a whole bunch of stuff going on. And so she decided to step away. And so, Callie and I had to be flexible and pivot to say, okay, now it's just you and me. Do we bring in other people, or do we just bring in a guest every time? Or how do we want to, how do we want to kind of run the show? And so I think a lot of lessons learned, but ultimately it's really just being able to pivot and be flexible with scheduling, because this is not our primary income, right? If that, I think we actually lost a lot of money, right? Like we put in our own money to buy equipment, our own time to like do things. And so just really trying to be considerate of each other's time. But also understand that, we have to stay consistent with our content in order for us to gauge viewers. So that I think for me, at least, that's kind of, what I would say about some of the challenges that we've had, and kind of how we've been able to gain as many followers as we do now. Anything to add, Callie?
Yeah, and then when we did the Finding Love, that really helped us like kind of catapult. But I think timing also was really helpful. And then just wanted to kind of, I know Olivia talked about, being flexible, but the structure also really helped. I think we've gotten a schedule, because I think it is, when you're not making any money, when you're not getting like the views, when you're not getting the feedback, it can be discouraging, right? Because you show up like day after day and nobody comes. and watches it. But like we did it because we really wanted to talk about those topics too, anyways, right? And so it's just like we were gaining a lot from the people that we're talking to. So if nobody else watches, at least we're getting that information. We're making those connections. And during that time, there was also nothing to do because it was during COVID, and people didn't have a choice but to watch us. I think a lot of people have gotten a little tired of our faces. But, again, I think there's always something new happening in our community. There's always something cool that's happening. And so I think it's been a just really great to be able to showcase those things.
Yeah. So what types of challenges have you guys experienced so far? Like you guys said that you're on like episode 7 or 10. What types of challenges have you encountered so far?
Yeah, 7. I mean, obviously, like you said, the timelines, respecting each other's time. Same thing as you said, and one thing that I told Pang and that we agreed on too is like it's not how we make our bread to feed our families. So it's to stay fun, but to have those conversations, like you guys said, whether it be with people who are listening in. If anything, it's like you said, Kelly. It's us getting the chance to just talk to each other and like just being better at communication as well. But yeah, no, definitely the time thing. I mean, Pang's a busy guy on his farm. And I mean, he's got 2 jobs and he's got 2 daughters that he spends a ton of time with. I'm literally pretty much launching a brand new business, even though it's been around for a little bit. So, but we do try to find the time to, get those episodes out because we do understand too that the consistency is important. But at the same time, like I told Pang last time, let's not put too much weight on if we miss a week or two, because we got to make our paper to live.
Yeah. And I think that along with that, like just navigating social media, like just the ever changing landscape of social media, like right now, reels are really big. So editing everything down to like 1 minute, and trying to be able to, get our point across and cutting everything down. And I mean, obviously I stutter a lot, but speech impediment. So I'm doing a lot of editing, anytime I try to edit a reel. But yeah, it's like I'm finding how much like time that takes to put like a short little clip like that together. It'll take me like an hour or two just to put out a clip, to edit it down. So like just all the work that goes behind content creating, like I have so much more respect for that now. I never thought that like in my 30s I'd be talking about social media likes, right? Like Instagram likes and Instagram followers. Every time I see, I hear a little bing on my phone and I look at it and I see it's like an additional followers, like my heart jumps a little bit. I still get a little giddy, but it's kind of cool. And it's like a totally different landscape. And now I'm like learning like a new skill, just like anything else.
So I'm kind of curious, how did y'all divvy up the work? Like who does what part? Like how did y'all figure that out?
Oh, well, two paid for everything, so I felt bad. So I felt like I had to step my side up. So as far as like the organizing stuff and like doing all the editing and stuff, he does the big shows. He edits the full episodes, and then of course it's his camera and it's his equipment. And so I try to do the best I can on my end to edit down all the videos and clips.
Yeah, I mean, I think one intersection we haven't crossed yet is a roadblock of hey, you need to get this done and I need to get this done. Like we've been very patient with each other and just understanding that, hey, this is like I said earlier, we're doing it as best as we can. Yeah, as often as we can, the best that we can, understanding our own time and being respectful of each other in that way. Maybe someday that'll change, but maybe if it does, that's okay. That's part of a growth process as well. But so far, it's just been just being like as respectful as we can to each other's time and just knowing like, hey, you're going to be busy sometimes and you're going to have a wedding to go to or you're going to have something to do, take care of your farm. And it is what it is, So But yeah, obviously that and balancing that and consistency, we do have to put a little pressure on ourselves.
Right.
But at the same time, we haven't come to butt heads yet.
No, not yet. But in this process, it's actually been really nice because it's given me a chance to get to know two really well. We have really nice conversations in our podcast, and some of my favorite podcasters are when it's just us two. We have guests too, but then anytime it's just us two, it's just like it's an opportunity for me to get to know him a little bit more intimately, and for myself to kind of share my story. And so it's actually been really nice, like also like in your 30s, you're not talking to too many of your friends about like your day and stuff, so it's almost kind of therapeutic.
Mm-hmm.
How about you guys? How do you guys distribute the work? Because you guys, you guys have a huge following. You're doing your show, and I see that you guys are doing a bunch of videos about like kind of your day-to-day stuff. Like you guys were at the fashion show, and you guys walked there too, right?
No, so we actually emceed the fashion show, and I think we just play off each other's strengths and like what we actually like doing. Like I know Callie hates editing, but I actually really enjoy it, and so I like when it's not professionally done, like when we did Finding Love, and it was the virtual stuff. Like I did all the editing of that. And then, I think it's also based on trust too, right? Like she just trusts that I would do it and that I would look out for the best of, best have all that talk in its best interest, right? And not really just purposely like do crazy things. And so yeah, I think it's just we play off each other's strengths. Like I know Callie loves structure and organization, and she's really good at that. So um, I let her do that. And if it comes to like editing or whatever it may be, we just let each other know. And I think if she's busy and she's like, "Hey, can you put the agenda together?" then I would go in and do it, or come up with questions. But I think it's just playing off each other.
Have you guys been able to be consistent all the way through as much as you guys would like to be? I mean, you're 88 episodes in, so you're pretty consistent, but have you guys had breaks in between as well where it's just like, hey, I'm going on vacation, and you guys announce that to your to your listeners as well, or you guys just kind of go off the map and come back when you're ready?
We haven't we've taken time off. I think last summer we kind of took the summer off. We didn't really make an announcement or anything like that. I think that's a nice thing about kind of having a platform, right? Like you want to be consistent so that people know when to show up and listen. But we didn't have much going on, and I felt like the world was kind of coming back last year, y'all. I think we were kind of getting out of COVID, and so I think everybody was busy in general. We did when our third person left, we did come out and like make an official statement, because we didn't want any people, anybody to like be like, oh, what happened, and even after the statement, people did kind of, have their own comments about things, but we definitely again, just gosh, I think at our highest, y'all, like we literally had like 3 posts a day and maybe even 4 posts a day. I mean, we were just like, it was like, and it had to be variety, right? So we didn't just do posts. We would do videos, we do posts, we do just everything. And that was pretty crazy. I don't know why we got so crazy or,
I think because part of it, I think, was engagement. We were trying to find the algorithm of Facebook and trying to figure out like what type of content does Facebook help us push versus it being organic. So I think I think at that time we were trying to figure out like best time to post, how many posts, and what type of content. And I think even at one point we were getting like lots of people from like India and we're figuring out why India, like what's happening, right? And so I think it's just kind of figuring all that stuff out, and I still don't think we have it all figured out, honestly. The algorithm changes constantly, so I never know anymore. But I think consistency is so important. Even if it's like one post a day, you kind of have to stay consistent to engage your viewers.
Yeah, that's something we need to get better about. We have
Yeah.
a post like every other day, if not every couple of days. Maybe that's what we need. We just need some kind of crazy scandal or something,
I mean,
Yeah,
that's like if you do every other day, that's still better than like just doing once a month or something, right?
Yeah.
Like I think like for me, if I don't have it on a schedule, like that's just my personality. And so it's just like if we're kind of like, well, we'll just do it whenever. Like I literally will put something on my schedule to do outside of this, which would block off that schedule, right? And so I think the consistency for me really helps, and then it also helps me to like plan ahead. I think like when you work with somebody, like figuring out how you work best, because I'm not as like off the cuff kind of person. I kind of like to like marinate on stuff and think about stuff and then figure out like what all I want to bring into, which is why I really like the agenda. I know not everybody always looks at the question, but it's really for me to kind of formulate like the things I want to say and like how I want the flow of the conversation to go. And so but you kind of figure that out as you go. So what do you guys have the questions prepared ahead for the people that y'all bring on, or what do you usually do?
We kind of do, right? And then 90% of the time we kind of stray away from it. If we're in a good flow, we try not to interrupt that, especially if our guest, they're talking about something and they're kind of in a good groove. We want to make sure we can allow them time to kind of dig into that. So we kind of do yes and no.
Yeah, when it's just us, we definitely do. When it's just us, we definitely have a structure of at least a topic of what this episode's going to be. Because we're only 8 episodes in, we have not run out of topics.
Yeah.
But we'll see how long that lasts. But yeah, when it's just Ping and I, we usually do write stuff down. We at least discuss it during the week, just back and forth. We don't go into like a ton of details, just a topic at hand, and then we kind of just let it go off the cuff. But yeah, with like Pang said, with guests, a lot of times when we have the guests, it's really we want to hear their stories. And so far, our guests have been Hmong guys, because we really do want to find out like the men's health part of it is one part that we always try to dig into at some point in the podcast. Which usually we'll tell our guests, obviously, too, that, hey, we're going to talk about your challenges more than your success a lot of times, because success is cool. But I think Hmong guys, we just need to talk more about the challenges. That's the part that needs to be discussed. That's more important, which was the original purpose of the pod. So I guess, sorry to make that a long answer, but yeah, sometimes structured, sometimes a little bit just off the cuff too.
Yeah. So what's your current frequency of you guys recording right now, right? Like you guys are obviously still a little new. So how often are you guys recording? Is that something you both have considered, like once a week, once a month?
We record, as of right now, we record every Sunday. So once a week, we try to do 1 or 2 episodes. Especially we talked about how the summer is going to be busy for both of us. So we talked about doing multiple episodes in a day. We've yet to do that. I think once it actually happens, there's always some kind of time constraint. And then we kind of gauge how we're feeling. But once a day, and then throughout the week, we try to pull clips from that episode, and then try to post at least like daily or every other day clips from that episode. And we're finding that the clips are doing a lot better than the episodes. So that's where, at least that's where my primary focus is. It's easier and it's more digestible for somebody to view a 1-minute clip, and it's also nice because I'm editing out all the times I stumble. Um, so it's a lot more digestible, and so we're finding that that's doing well. But the full episode we meet about once a week.
Yeah.
So how long does it take y'all to record? Because you guys record you pre-record, and so is it, like, are y'all spending like 2 hours with the guests, but it comes down to like an hour or like 30 minutes?
No, we go the one-time recording pretty much. Yeah, we don't redo them a lot. The only time that we've redone them is when I made technical difficulties. But usually we just go right off the cuff just to keep it authentic, because we've found out too that when you speak about the same thing the second time, it never comes out as authentic as the first time it comes out of your mouth. And
Dude, yeah. So many like great lost episodes that were like that we forgot to hit the record button.
Yeah, little.
Sorry, I have an issue interrupting. So.
No, but it's just technical difficulty sometimes, because we just have the pod recorder, the camera, a timer. Like there's just multiple things that we're pressing, and because we're new, it's once every now and then we get started on the podcast, and then we'll be 10 minutes in, but oh shit, we got to talk about that again. But yeah, we try to just shoot it on one time, especially with guests, because with guests it's just too awkward if you stop them. Yeah, you just can't stop. You got to let them flow, and if you got to stop them for technical breaks and stuff like that, is just it doesn't. I mean, I wouldn't want that, if I was a guest.
And we find that our guest episodes are generally a little bit longer than just our podcast with just the two of us.
Yeah.
So then, do you edit the? So do you edit the full podcast then, episodes?
Yeah. So I do it on my Mac. I use Final Cut Pro for ours, and then I just but I don't really cut anything out. But one thing I will do is when I'm done with the whole thing, I will usually send it to Ping and usually send it to the guests, because I want the guests to make sure that they didn't say anything that they didn't want to be out there, maybe they want something pulled back. But yeah, usually we'll just go through the whole conversation, film the whole thing, put everything together, which is really not that hard. It's just syncing your audio and your video, and then usually I'll upload that, and then Payne can just draw from that, and he'll take his own clips. But he edits on his phone, I believe, which is a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and I'm cheap. So then I still use the free app, and you can still see the watermark on all of our clips. So it's a little rough.
You can up that,
we're going to get there. I know, but then it's not centered, and it doesn't look great. So I just, it's like $20. So I just need to balls up and freaking pay the $20 to make that happen. When you guys do it, like talking about like editing and stuff, like you guys go live. So then, like, are you guys ever worried about saying anything crazy or off the cuff?
I think that that's part of like that cancel culture that we're gonna go right into, right? I think I feel like Callie and I have a really good understanding of what being neutral sounds like, right? And honestly, like we have our own opinions, strong opinions on things sometimes. But I think you also have to be reasonable as well, right? So I think that at least for Callie and I don't feel like we've ever said anything super offensive or have been super offensive. At least not that I know of. But I think that's something you can't control, right? Like my cup of tea may not be yours, but that doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it that we have to agree to disagree. And I think sometimes you have to always have that lens on. And so, I don't feel like we've ever done or said anything inappropriate or is super offensive towards people. But are we scared we may accidentally slip? I think we've done it long enough to where right? But I think in the beginning we probably were, where it's like, did I say the right thing? Did I not say the right thing? Did I say too many times? Did people actually understand what I was trying to say? So I think those types of thoughts does come in. I think like at the very beginning maybe, but now it's like we've kind of found our groove and things that we should or shouldn't say, or kind of like what our viewers would think. And so I feel like we've done a pretty good job at staying consistent with that, but probably more so in the beginning where sa, right? Like you're constantly thinking that stuff. So, and you're also very nervous at the beginning,
Yeah.
right? Because you don't know your audience. This is kind of like a new thing. So oli haying la to la ona, right? Like you don't really know your way, right? You're still trying to figure it out. So there's all that stuff too. And then on top of that, you're nervous, right? And so I think you will try, but as you do it for a while and you kind of get used to it, I think you find your way of just how you say things, and then your natural, like that authenticity is there,
Right.
and your personality will show through, and people will know that. So
yeah, because we never go live at all, and you guys can't see it, but I'm like shaking here. And then even before we started, I was like doing breathing techniques, to like calm my nerves and stuff, like. And it's funny because we're here talking about cancel culture, and I have to be careful to not say anything ridiculous,
So Kelly, why don't you jump us to the next section then? Yeah.
Yep, for sure. Okay, so cancel culture. So we wanted to tie this in because, of course, when you are, again, putting yourself out there, is very easy to get canceled. And I think, again, because of, us, for the most part, we protect our guests. And I think that that's something that has really helped us, is just recognizing that, of course, if we bring guests on and then we totally like, like if we make fun of them, no guest would ever want to come and talk with us, right? And I think for the most part, again, we find that, usually like we get to hear someone's point of view and we're like, okay, we can see why, you're like that, or that's what you believe and things like that. And so the cancel culture, I feel like that was a couple of years ago that got really, really popular. Everything was just getting canceled left and right. Like it was just, nowadays I feel like everything's so, you have to be so politically correct, right? You can't, you have to be so thoughtful of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I looked this up on Wikipedia. And so Wikipedia says that cancel culture came into circulation in the late 2010 and early 2020s and has mostly negative connotations, often used by self-described advocates for free speeches and against censorship. The term call-out culture is generally understood to be a more positive framing of the same concept. And so an example of mainstream cancel culture would be, if y'all remember when Kanye West was kind of going through his he just had a mental breakdown, I feel like, and we all just kind of watched, and he got canceled. And in a lot of ways, because of, whatever, all the stuff that he was going through, being so in the public eye, right? And so of course, I think in the Hmong community, it's not, we don't have things like that big and that crazy. Well, maybe a little bit, right? But I feel like everything is in Hmong tea, right? Like if you're in Hmong tea, oh my gosh, like you're getting screenshots and people are sending stuff to you and whatnot. But I feel like when I think about the couple of people that have been what I would consider canceled, it's just, again, it's hard to come back from, but it's not been, I feel like it's not been things that like people just say. It's like things that have a lot of repercussions that are outside of even social media.
Yeah, I always thought it was kind of crazy that, you can't get canceled or like lose your career or something over something you say. I mean, it's something you do is definitely a lot more understandable. And then also like free Kanye, but just kidding. But yeah.
Cancel culture. I mean, I think in the Hmong community too, it's you have to learn how to navigate too. I think social media is like very toxic in a way, where you can cancel yourself if you don't filter yourself enough, which I think I see that a lot in some of the Hmong pages. I mean, it makes for great reads for me personally, but it doesn't really help probably that person out. I mean, I think definitely there's people in the Hmong culture who are probably more known, and then those individuals, when they do something or say something, they definitely have more repercussion.
Yeah.
Whether or not they care, that's on them, right? Because maybe they don't care and it doesn't affect anybody but the people trolling. But I mean, it's definitely a risk. Like you guys doing your podcast or us doing a podcast. You guys do it live, so that's even a little bit more things that you got to think about. We do it pre-recorded, but at the same time, even pre-recorded, sometimes your statement don't have no harm in your message, but it's like you said, Olivia, it's going to harm somebody sometimes. It is what it is. I think for me and Ping, I always said we just got to be ourselves, because at the end of the day, you're going to offend somebody one day or another, and they will. I mean, we get offended by things too, and so it's our choice to be offended. Not always. There's things that are, probably way too far past crossing the line, but for the most part, yeah. I mean, toxic culture it is a scary thing. It is a real thing. So
Yeah.
And then like the Hmong community is so it's so split. I mean, we don't all together. We don't lean one way or the other, and I think there's the community is pretty like divided, and there's enough diversity in our thought process where there's like an audience for everybody. If you lean one way, or if your opinions lean one way, I think there's an audience for you. I think it's kind of crazy to kind of go out of our way to like listen to somebody that we don't agree with, and to point things out that we don't agree with. It's different if we're harming somebody or we're saying something hateful, but I think if as long as it's not one or the other. I think there's an audience for that. Specifically in the Hmong community, I think we're very there's enough differing thoughts.
Yeah. I feel like even in mainstream, it's like that, right? Like,
Yeah.
Even some of our like more well-known celebrities in our Hmong culture, they have fans who will have their back 100%, and then there's everyone else who don't, right? And so, I think too, to your point, I think that they do care. It's just that we either don't know them personally, so they're not expressing that to us, right? And so, I do know a couple people where they've done a really good job about not engaging in all of that toxic things that social media puts out about them, which I applaud them for, because I think it does take a really strong person to not be a keyboard warrior and just go to town with every comment about them. I think even for Kelly and I, sometimes it's hard. When we first started, you want a couple people who would like come and say some things on our page, or like if we share it into other pages, they would like go and say things. And I think instead of just like responding back to this person, because we don't know if it's like one of those pages where it's a fake page and or to just talk crap, right? Because it had a picture of itu kaisana,
there's a ton of those.
Person.
There's so many of those.
Yeah, it's this consistent person where he or she is just always so negative about everything, right? And so I think instead of like going crazy and replying back, like we just talk to each other about that, right? Like, this comment makes me feel this way, or could we have done something differently? I think it's also a really good lessons learned too, that name each other just like us, so when there are crazy things, like we can kind of talk about it, versus where some of those like Hmong celebrities where they may or may not have someone to kind of talk to in that sense, right? Maybe they have friends who are supportive, but that they're not in the same shoe. So la chipona, right? And so I know from just knowing a couple people that they do get hurt by some of these comments. And I think the few that I do know have taken the higher road of just saying, you know what, there's nothing I can do really, right? Like, besides I continue to put out good music, because I still have fans out there who love my music and who loves me and supports me, and I'm going to continue to do what I do and create for them versus the haters, you know. And I love that these people are so positive and they do think that way, and I think that's how we all have to think, right? Like some of the things that we do, kind of like what I alluded to earlier, we're not going to be able to please everybody. Our opinions are not going to be the exact same as someone else, but if it is going to help someone else, and it resonates with someone else to where it'll help them or inspire them, or just knowing that they're not alone, that other people are also experiencing it, then we continue to do the podcast or the show for them. So
Yeah, when we so I would say probably one of the most toxic times that we have done the show, I think would have been the Finding Love, not for us, but for the contestants,
yeah,
because there was just so much noise. And I know we have our very own Eric Thor in the house, who was on the Finding Love and one of the competitors. But I know that during that time, there, again, because it wasn't about us, it was about the folks that were in the show, right? So if you're not familiar with Finding Love, we basically have sorry guys, I keep having this cough. So we basically had one gal who was our, bachelorette, and then we had all these guys compete, and then we would basically, just pare them down, every few weeks or every week, I think, towards the end. But all the, people who follow that show, they would have their favorites, right? And so they would be cheering, like certain people on. And, I can't imagine if I had been one of those gentlemen. And then, when you see a lot of support for maybe, like a front runner, that might be discouraging. That can be a little bit toxic trying to do that. And so I know we did warn them to, try to just limit what they're looking on our page, because it can get really nerve-wracking to be competing with people and then coming on the show and then, having episodes and then trying to deal with all the noise that you hear.
yeah. I think the cancel culture is hard sometimes, but I don't think it's as hard as the mainstream, yeah.
Right.
Like I know that there have been a couple of Hmong people who have been canceled, and I don't want to say their name because I think we all might we know a few. But what are you guys' thoughts on coming back in the Hmong community?
I think genuinely, like, the Hmong community is overall like very supportive, and I think you have your few loud voices. As long as you're not doing anything like crazy. I mean, there's been some crazy stuff that's happened, but I believe the Hmong community is generally very supportive, and I talk to Two about this a lot in our episodes, where as business owners, like catering to the Hmong community is the lowest hanging fruit. Like, it is the easiest thing to do, and like absolutely, like, by all means, like, do it, because if one Hmong person sees another Hmong person doing something great, they're gonna be attracted to that. So I think generally, like, it's the Hmong community is very supportive, and as far as bouncing back, as long as your content is good. I mean, we've seen, maybe I don't follow too many of these stories, but we've seen people bounce back from mishaps that they've had, even some pretty wild stuff that went on, without I don't want to get into any specifics, but some crazy things are have happened, and I think people have still continue to do what they love, their art or their craft.
Yeah. Two, what are your thoughts on that?
Bouncing back. Do you mean like bouncing back, like if they've been canceled and they come back from that? I mean, I think it's tough. It depends. I always bring it back to kind of personal, like your personal choice, right? Like if you're really affected by the opinions of all the Hmong people around, because they're gonna have them. I mean, people in general will. And it depends how much it kills your reputation and how much you relied on that audience to make you be who you were,
Right.
or who you are. I think then, I mean, it's tough. It's tough. It's a fine line. Like, I'm always very cautious to not break that, so I don't have to go through that. I think it's definitely possible, but you just have to work twice as hard when you come back, and not repeat your mistakes because people remember. But I mean, I think we've seen it. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, like a Hmong individual who's maybe been canceled. Um, yeah, it depends on your circle, I think too. You know, if
Oh
you
yeah.
if you really rely on the Hmong community to make you be who you are and you mess up, then it might be tough. Um, if your audience is general public, not everyone's gonna know. You can always restart. You know, it kind of depends on the size of your audience
Mm-hmm.
and how much influence and impact you've either have or have had. Then I think that can definitely play a part. But I think it's doable. It just depends how big of a mistake. We've seen it with actual, like outside the Hmong community, with actual celebrities. Many of them come back. Like I want to say like Andrew C.K. as a comedian, stuff like that. They do come back, but
Louis C.K.
Louis C.K.
Okay,
Yeah, Louis C.K.
I'm a big comedy guy.
Yeah, like they do come back, but sometimes they've lost a lot of the audience as well, you know. So I guess it just depends on your sheer size of impact that you have too. That
Mm-hmm.
can really play especially if your finances are tied to that too. I think
Yeah.
that'd be very hard.
Yeah. And I don't think that social media does a really good job of like especially for Mong culture, yeah, because like there's like Callie said, like Hmong tea and other pages that are specifically made to shine light on people's mistakes and have people talking all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think that also helps because
I
then
think in every community, I want to say that exists in every
yeah,
community, you know.
I 100% agree.
And I think that's just kind of like that's just the low hanging fruit to talk about
Mhm.
somebody, you know, especially if you know.
It's the easy thing to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, we
Yeah.
talk about that in our podcast. Like we don't want to address like any like personal like controversial topics, and we
Yep.
don't want to shine a negative light on the Hmong community like that.
Yeah.
You know, but if that's what you do, like that's what you do. That's your lane. There's a lane for that.
Mhm.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No. And I think you're right. I think that, it does happen everywhere, but,
Yeah.
I think it's just always much easier to talk about all the bad things that are
Yeah.
happening, right? That a person did, versus all of the good stuff that they've done.
Right. Yeah.
And I think even some of these individuals that I can think of off the top of my head where they've done certain things and people try to cancel them, but it's like, but look at all the amazing things that
Yeah.
they have done before, and we're just gonna like oversee that because of this one incident, which is, I think too, to your point, like depends on how bad that thing is,
Yeah.
right? Like if it was like
how much
like
weight would be
rape or something crazy where you're just like, I don't know if you can come back from that.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes you got to move countries.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, the world's so small now. Even if you move it, it's tough.
Yeah, just you got to throw your phone into the wall.
Follows you
Throw your
everywhere.
smartphone away.
Yeah.
And I think like because it's all, I mean, even doing the show, and then we have like followers who are actually like family of family, right? Like
Right.
because it's so connected, and so then it starts to feel like really, really small. And even though everybody, like I guess like for Miga people, you have people who are not related at all, but like for
Right.
us in some way, somehow, it is still, there's people that are related even though they're following, and you really don't know who all is watching
Right.
at the end of the day, right? I feel like sometimes we put a lot of things out, and then people know stuff about us, right? And then they see us and they say these things. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot we put that out, and so I think that those are like, what I would say insecurities and things that you can get publicly criticized about. I know I've like written a lot of things on, when I was going through my divorce, I put a lot of that stuff out there, and I remember just getting lots of different comments. I remember one time that there was this gentleman that like bashed me on my page, and the daughter actually wrote me and was like, "I'm so sorry for my dad," and all this stuff. And it's just like, but the intent, and again, I think even when you have good intent, right? Because like I had wanted to kind of talk about it, just because I feel like it's one of those shameful things that people don't want to talk about, don't want to address. And I just felt like I'm going through this. I kind of want to talk about it now, because one day I'm going to forget about the struggles of that. And one day my advice is really just going to be like, you can do it, but then when you're going through it, it's just like, you feel like you can't do it. And so even though there was like those good intent to talk about it, you still have a lot of people who will still, think that you're doing it for attention or for whatever it is that you're doing it for. And so I think there's a lot of insecurities, and even when you post stuff, it's like you're scared of what people will say.
Yeah. So how do you guys decide like what to put out? Like individually, like 'cause I know, two had mentioned I have two daughters. I'm married. We have a farm. So part of my business like is, we're a family farm, and so how much of information do I put out there? Like that's still that's an ongoing conversation that I have with my wife, and we like that's like the biggest reason why we argue now is like, all right, how much of information do we want to put out? Do we want people like this is our safe space? Like, do we want people like come to the farm and interacting with the bees or the animals or whatever? Like it's so how do you guys walk that line, I guess?
Mm-hmm.
I know, and then you have children too, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We both do. Yeah.
Oh, okay, both of you guys. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's just really what you're comfortable with, right? I think at the end of the day, like Callie and I, we both have our own personal page, but I think for me, it's like I really just post it for me. I don't post it for anyone else.
Yeah.
And so if people happen to like, comment, share, whatever, I totally don't mind, because I feel like for me, if I'm putting it on my social media already, the likelihood of someone else seeing it, or it's going to be there forever, right? And so you just kind of have to feel comfortable and decide on what you're comfortable with on posting. I know there are some people that have like mentioned to me before about like, why do you post things about your kids?
Right.
Like your kids shouldn't be on, like it's like facial recognition, Google tech and all this stuff. Like they can be used for crazy things. But it's kind of like, well, some of us are facial recognition to open our phone, it's already there.
Yeah.
Fingerprint to open up your phone, it's already there. Like that data has already been collected, right? So I think it's just what you're most comfortable with. So I think that's kind of how I've just been able to kind of determine what I want to post. And a lot of the times it's just me expressing myself. Like
Right.
I'm not a deep thinker writer like Callie is. So she like loves to write really like inspirational things. Every now and then when I kind of get that feeling, I'll do that. But I really post and write things for me. I love that Facebook has the memory section. So every few years, I can look back to say, wow, I've come a long way. Like 5 years ago, I was in the middle of contemplating on taking a new job or not. And I'm so
Right.
glad that I did, because, I'm making like 5 times more, or all these things have happened. And so I think it's just a really great way for me to highlight my milestones. Right. And again, we also have to see that you see what other people want to put out. It's not really reality, because there's so many
Yeah.
challenges that we face that we actually don't share. Right. And sometimes we do, but most of the times we don't. We only share and talk about our successes and our happy times and our happy moments. And I think that's why when Callie started writing a lot about like her divorce, it was like a breath of fresh air, because she was just so honest about the things that she was going through and her process, right? And so I think we just write what we're comfortable with.
Yeah, and like you have a. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, there's definitely a fine line. I think for me, it worries me more for us to post stuff. I think we're old enough to understand now. I go back and look at my memories too, because I always find them so funny, because some of the stuff at 21 is so stupid. And it's just funny that I posted those things, but at the same time, I was being just authentically myself. But going back into it, reading them as a 34-year-old, the stuff I posted at 21 about all the nights we're going out to the clubs and stuff, like I don't even know why I posted about that stuff. But at the time, it made sense, as a 21-year-old. It's funny. A lot of times I find myself deleting old stuff
It's growth.
Yeah, but so it's funny, but I really worry about it more. Like, I don't have children, you guys do. I worry more for the kids who because we know how we are when we're teens and we post
Mhm.
out whatever we want to post, and we don't feel the weight of what like it can really do, especially in today's day and age. I think we kind of got away with it, if we posted
Yeah.
something crazy on AOL or whatever, people weren't screenshotting that stuff. So we're
Mhm.
kind of different times. So for us, we're kind of lucky that we got to kind of be at the beginning of it, versus and so we kind of get the idea too of like, don't post everything, like
Yeah.
and we're at an age too where our professional lives are probably at a place where we wouldn't want to post everything either.
Right.
Versus, I'm just glad I'm not posting what I used to post. That's my point.
It's kind of cringy sometimes, yeah, when you go back and read it.
It's funny. It's often funny, but every now and then I see a picture that's like, yeah, don't.
Really?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So like, I mean, I guess I don't have a partner. And so, I think if you have a partner, then you do have to kind of talk to that, your partner and see what they're comfortable with, right? Because not every partner wants to be all over social media, want to be talked about all over social media. And then, if there's kids involved, then you and your partner have to kind of decide. I think, like for me, like, I mean, I really, again, I talked about my divorce a lot because, again, that was like to hopefully help people who were, like going through that and didn't have a space to talk about it. And so my ex is actually, he's not Hmong, he's Mika, so I think that allowed me a lot of room to be able to talk about it, because if he was Hmong, I would probably not be talking about it, right? Because I'd probably get sister-in-laws and brother-in-laws and mother-in-laws and father-in-laws like just on my back about it. But I think that like being like, having that space, I guess, allow me to kind of talk about it. Not to say, I do have like my father-in-law and or ex-father-in-law and ex-mother-in-law follow my pages, and so I think they do send that to my ex. But the stuff that I talk about is really what I go through. Again, that was really to share my journey, and never to bash, like my ex or like what went through, what happened and stuff like that. And when I post about my kids, it is pretty. I mean, there's certain things that I want to post to just, again, just show people that you can still co-parent, you can still be happy, you can still find ways to support like your new family structure and stuff like that. And so it's being conscious and thinking about what my ex and what he would prefer me to post and not post about the kids as well. I mean, the kids don't have YouTube and TikTok because their dad doesn't want them to have that, and so I totally respect that. And just thinking about his own values about what he wants, it's like, okay, I'm not going to necessarily post this like them swimming or like just certain posts like that I feel would be inappropriate, or could be misconstrued as inappropriate, because again, we don't know who is overseas looking at pictures and looking at things, right? And so you don't know. It can be a little bit sensitive with kids, but I think I try to be pretty open book about stuff. I know Liv and I have both shared a lot, even on our All That Talk page. When Olivia was her and her husband are trying to have another baby, and so those are things that can be kind of scary to talk about, and putting yourself out there. But again, the hope is that people can then also know that it's okay for me to talk about. It's okay that we're going through these things, and it's not a shameful thing. It's something that, again, our platform is to encourage people to talk, and even if it's not with us, to talk within their own circles, or to find people in their lives that they can talk to.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I mean, that's exactly why when me and Tu talked about doing a podcast, like we wanted to touch on the subject of men's health, especially the Hmong men's health, right? Just because we wanted to cover some of these topics that are so taboo in our community. Relationship health is so important, and it's such a big topic in our community, that I think Hmong men aren't really kind of speaking out or aren't speaking about enough. Um, and we're not even having those conversations with our friends and our peers, and how to go about dealing with X, Y, and Z. And so in our podcast, we, similar to you, like we try to be as authentic and as genuine as possible. We're pretty open books. And that's what the scary thing is, right? Is we put a lot of information out there, and it can be misconstrued, but just letting you guys know, just putting it out there now. Our intentions are good. We're just here to try to share our experiences with each other, with everybody. I know, too, you could talk about your experiences, but I talk a lot about like therapy and being involved in like and um, and just recently going, and I know that has opened up conversations with me, with some of my friends about therapy, and that's been helpful um, for a few people. But I can see down the line where if I get a bigger audience, I can see where maybe some people might, I don't know, call me names or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the Hmong community for guys, I mean, the conversation of like Hmong dudes going to therapy, it's not a topic that I hear very much. Every time I talked about Hmong, every time I talked about therapy with guy friends, it's never been with a Hmong person other than this guy right here. Everybody else has always been my white and black friends, the other people who are doing it. Hmong people is just not something that's been brought up, and maybe it's just because we don't talk about it. Maybe there's like a bunch of people that go. I don't know. I'm assuming there are. If both of us have, I'm gonna assume that many more are like us and have gone. But it's just not something that gets talked about a ton. And yeah, that's kind of so we do expose ourselves a lot, but we also understand that, like for example, we were talking about the idea of sharing too much sometimes. Like even my own mom has got on me, like, dude, why are you sharing all this stuff? I told her, it's like every time I share something crazy about my own life, I always find support of people in similar situations. And that helps me grow every single time. As opposed if I just held it in on my own head, um, I mean, yeah, you might figure it out yourself, might take you 10 years. But if you talk about it, you're probably going to find somebody and they'll probably help you filter through all those issues much quicker. So I think there is a lot of benefits to speaking out about all those things, but it's at your own comfort, right? So like I would never talk about things that my wife does not want to be talked about, never. But things that are my own issues, I like throwing it out there because I know that generally it draws other people with a similar energy or have gone through the same struggle to then come and assist you because they know that you're not crying for help, but you're speaking out. So you're sharing the struggle, and yeah, they'll just draw more like-minded, right?
Yeah, that's so true. Like, because I think in our Hmong culture, I think it's all about protecting that and like protecting like who you are and your image and stuff like that. But I feel like it's what makes us more real, right? When we don't have that perception of like just being perfect or having a perfect life or having a perfect family or having a perfect job, like that's just unrealistic. And I think that a lot of people nowadays, like it's nice to be able to know that, hey, somebody's like a real person and they have struggles, and then it makes you feel less isolated about what you're going through. And I think that's to me is like the counter side of like the toxicity of social media, right? Like, again, we get to see just a little inkling. And I think when you put yourself out there, people get to see that little part of you and they make it a judgment based on that little piece of you. And it can be unfair sometimes, but I guess that's kind of the price you pay for putting yourself out there.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm noticing like my hair is like bad, so I'm getting a little distracted. But I'm in the process of growing out dreadlocks. Speaking of cancel culture, right? Is that
Nice, dude.
how's everybody feel about that? I mean, I figured it's kind of on brand as like a hippie farmer that quit his job and left society to grow his own food. Like I can do it, right? I can
Can't wait till you have
grow
dreadlocks, bro. We need more Hmong guys with dreadlocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I mean, I think some people will probably say that that's like, that could be like what, like cultural appropriation or something. But I mean, then there's other people like, it's kind of like when we see other people wear our stuff, right? Like, I think I really like that. But, of course, if you like are wearing it to make fun of it. It's a different thing, but I feel like it's for me, it's part of us learning each other's culture and like recognizing that like there's a lot of respect from a place of respect versus just like, you know, like appropriation.
Yeah. Well, you know, my excuse is that, you know, if I happen to have long hair and I'm dealing with beeswax all the time, and if I happen to get wax in my hair and it just locks up by itself, then, you know, whatever, right?
Got this comment from Chai. I don't care what most people think, they aren't paying my bills.
That's one thing. All right, as you know, me and two were kind of business owners. Like, people are paying our bills. You know, if they're not buying our stuff or paying for our services, man, they are like, they're totally paying our bills. Like 95% of my clientele is Hmong. So then if I say something crazy about Hmong people, like, I'm done. Back to work, paying.
The hard part too, I mean, it's not hard. Like, I think I 100% agree with what Chai was saying there for sure. Like, everybody can think whatever they want, because from my experience in the Hmong community, there's just as much support as I've heard negative things, whether it be about a cousin or anything like that. So to sit and dwell on all that stuff, it could eat you up alive, like literally. So he is right, but at the same time, I do agree with you, Peng, too, that your clientele is also going to be your if you run a business, then a lot of times those people are also your clientele. Right. So there's just a fine line that's tough to navigate, but that like has to be navigated too. But I do agree, like, at the end of the day, nobody else is paying your bills.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that though. Thank you for commenting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that comes to like whenever you want to do something, right? Like you guys starting your podcast, it's like at the end of the day, like nobody does pay your bills. So you put the stuff that you really want out there. And I think, you know, it sounds like just based in the short time that, you know, we've kind of gotten to know you guys, like it sounds like you guys have a lot of great intentions and want to do a lot of good things, which I think, again, we need more male voices. I think more verbal, like in social media, because again, you know, people are on social media and all they might see is like the good things or, you know, the nice fun things. And I think being real about things, because these are all things that we struggle with.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm pulling up images of Hmong people with dreadlocks, but I'm trying to justify those.
I don't think I've actually ran into one. I don't think I've met one.
I swear I've seen like one of those old wartime photos of like a Hmong lady, I think, you know, with
you know what? I think if you go to the Hmong multiverse page, I think they probably have that. I don't know if you've heard of the Hmong multiverse. But they have some crazy stories on there.
Yeah.
It's not real though. It's created by AI, just FYI.
Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't count.
It's pretty cool looking though.
It is cool. Yeah, they have some cool stuff
from the war
there.
times. But
gotcha.
Just trying to justify it. So
yeah. So do y'all have any more questions for us? I know that y'all wanted to ask, so I guess we're like nearing the end. So if there's any questions about, you know, podcasts or anything like that.
I mean, I don't have anything. I think just having the conversation too. It's nice to see how you guys communicate, how you guys behave, how you guys hold yourselves in front of the camera as well. There's something that we can always learn from that too. Being new, we're just trying to see how other people do it. Obviously, our examples are the big podcasts, but the big podcasts are not as relatable to us as you guys probably are, especially being that you guys are Hmong as well. So things like that, it's just nice for us. For me, it's just nice to kind of see how you guys structure and stuff like that too. Not that not that we're copying, but we're always looking at examples, right, to see how people structure their things and to hear what things they've done that's worked well for them, and to hear also the same things that you guys had talked about earlier, which is the struggles that you guys have had as well. So it's good to hear those as well, because some of them are commonalities and some of them are different that maybe we haven't crossed, but we will. So I don't have a ton of like specific questions. I think just having the chance to come on you guys' podcast, first of all, thanks for that. And then just giving us the shot to just talk with y'all and kind of, you know, now I can say if I see you somewhere and if I end up in Oregon on the Pacific, Northwest Pacific coast, you know, if I see you there, then it's another connection that we now have made, and we've had a conversation for an hour. How many times do we have conversations for an hour with people that we don't know?
Yeah.
So that's why these
or
podcasts
even
are
people
nice.
that we do know, which is the sad part, right? Like even some of our like our closest friends, like we don't talk to for like an hour, or at least have a genuine conversation with
Yeah, you should
about
just
anything
go, right?
meaningful.
Yeah.
Usually it's just about football and basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yes, go ahead.
yeah,
Go
I just wanted to say, because I know Peng had talked about wanting to like communicate better. Like being a podcast, it kind of does force you to like present and talk. And like I stutter as a kid. Shoot, I stutter now, and so I think when I think about just presentation and talking in front of people and things like that, like I would say the podcast has really helped me just to be a little bit more able to navigate a lot of off the cuff situations and just having more confidence. Even now, like I get nervous when we get on, I get nervous about a lot of things, but I think it definitely has helped. I certainly don't go back and listen to the show because I hate hearing my voice. I don't know how other people are going back and listening, but it's like it's cringy when you're like, dang, I sound like that even, right? But definitely like want to support you guys as you just progress in the podcast. I think again that we need more voices, especially men that will talk about mental health, especially this month is like mental health month, and so we appreciate the work that you are doing.
For sure. Yeah.
Thank you
for having us on.
Olivia, anything else to add?
Nope.
No.
All right. Well, thank you so much. So again, maybe y'all can just share how people can connect with you both before we let y'all go.
Go ahead too.
Yeah, so we're the No Eggs Podcast. We're on Instagram. We're on YouTube. We're on TikTok, right, as well.
Yeah, we're on TikTok.
But
We have about 4 followers on TikTok.
Yeah, we're fresh
So help
into our
us out.
episodes, and we're just trying to talk about men's mental health, and we're trying to just discuss some of the things that are not talked about a lot. We don't know everything. I mean, shit, we don't know anything, but we're just trying to have conversation about it. And at the end of the day, if we can get across to one person, then that's kind of paying a nice thing. Is one person that hears something that can help them progress is good enough for us. So tune in.
And then Yellow Autosport.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yellow Auto Sports. If you want to follow my business, it's an auto detail window tint shop that I've had for the last 7 years. Yeah, we're all over YouTube, Instagram as well.
I have to do that too. As a humble guy, so if I don't make him, he wouldn't. But yeah, no eggs / no gay podcast. Yeah, we have a lot of great conversations about just men's health, just kind of all things related in our community. We try to keep everything positive. We try to shed positive light on like cool things that people are doing in the Hmong community. And then also, check out the farm, gorillapastures.com. We're on Facebook and Instagram. We're not on TikTok yet, so maybe I'm dropping the ball there, but check it out. We have lip balm, hand balms. We're actually, it's springtime, so our bees are out collecting a bunch of nectar, and we're going to have some honey soon. Actually, you guys should send me your DM me your shipping address, and then I'll send you guys some product as well as some honey. We're actually in the process of processing honey right now. So
that's awesome.
I'll bring you some.
It still kills me that you guys went from no eggs to like the Hmong word.
Yeah.
Is it because it sounds alike? Is it supposed to sound similar?
No, it's
sounds
just a translation.
similar, and eggs
eggs,
has a. Oh, go ahead.
Right? Isn't it just a translation, Pang? You said.
Yeah.
No eggs.
Yeah, it's just the most. It
like
sounds the most
data,
similar.
Yeah,
no egg, no eggs. And then eggs have a connotation of balls, I guess.
What?
Like, I don't know.
Like
people sometimes refer to their balls as eggs. I you guys never heard that?
There's
That-
a
I don't know.
convenient
Maybe I'm
aspect
just
to it.
crazy. I've been out in the boonies for too
We'll
long.
tell you guys more off this stream.
Oh. Censoring,
Easier to
right?
explain that.
Censoring.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you guys so much for being on with us. Thank you, everyone that was on with us tonight. I know we didn't get to some of these comments. But again, here at All That Talk, we believe that conversations drive change, and change starts with you. And with that, we will see y'all next time. Have a good night. Bye.
Thank you.